The Wyoming wind hit hard that night, the kind of wind that sliced through clothes and skin without mercy. Lena Whitaker stood outside the worn canvas tent that had become her family's last shelter, pressing her thin coat tighter around her 3 children. The tent shook and groaned with every gust, its ropes straining like they might snap at any moment. Snowflakes drifted down from a sky that looked heavy with more trouble. Emma clung to Lena's side, trying to keep little Grace wrapped inside a blanket that was more holes than cloth. Samuel crouched near the almost dead fire, using his bare hands to move damp branches, hoping for one spark. The flames hissed, sputtered, and sank lower with every passing second. Lena watched the last bit of warmth fade and felt fear squeeze her chest so tight she could barely breathe. If the fire died, her children would not make it through the night. She knew it, she felt it, she feared it more than anything in the world. The storm clouds thickened above them, the cold grew sharper. The first serious snowflakes began falling in fast, heavy bursts. Lena knew this pattern. She had seen these storms blow across the plains like punishment, destroying anything unprotected in their path. She had survived many tough nights since her husband Andrew died on the trail west, but this night felt worse than the others. This night felt like the land had run out of mercy. Samuel looked up at her with frightened eyes. "Mama, I can find more wood. I can run fast." "No, sweetheart," Lena said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "The storm will take you. You stay right here." His small body slumped with disappointment, but he nodded. He was only 8, but hunger and hardship had carved an older look into his face. Lena's heart ached. In the last months, she had watched her children lose weight, lose warmth, lose the carefree spark children were supposed to have. She had kept them alive with sheer will, but she was running out of strength. She whispered a short prayer she had whispered many times before, a quiet plea for her children to see the next sunrise. Then she heard it. A faint sound carried in the wind, a steady rhythm. Not thunder, not branches. Something deliberate, hoofbeats. Lena straightened, fear and hope battling inside her. Riders on the open plains could bring help or danger. She grabbed Samuel's hand and pulled Emma and Grace behind her. The sound grew louder, closer, clearer. A dark horse broke through the swirling snow, the rider leaning low against the wind. He slowed as he reached the edge of the weak firelight. The horse snorted, stamping clouds of white breath into the air. Lena stood firm, her chin lifted even though her legs trembled under her skirt. She had faced too many hard days to fall apart now. The rider swung down from the saddle. Snow dusted his coat and hat. He stepped forward, the firelight catching the shape of his jaw and the steady focus in his eyes. "You cannot stay out here tonight." Lena held her ground. "We do not have anywhere else to go." The man nodded once, like he expected that answer. "You do now. Pack what you can. You and the children are coming with me." Lena's breath hitched. "Why would you help strangers?" He looked directly at her, and she saw no pity, only a firm, simple truth. "Because no woman and no child should freeze to death on my land. That is reason enough." Before Lena could answer, Grace let out a soft cry. The rider's gaze shifted toward the children, and something changed in his face. Something protective. Emma whispered, "Mama, please. I am so cold." That was the moment Lena knew she had no choice. Pride could not save her children. The tent could not save her children. The storm certainly would not. She nodded. "All right." The cowboy moved fast. He pulled thick blankets from his saddle and wrapped Emma, Samuel, and Grace one by one. Grace melted instantly into his arms when he lifted her, her tiny fingers clutching his coat. He lifted Emma and Samuel onto his horse, then turned back to Lena. "Name is Rowan Tate," he said. "Come on, you will ride behind me." Lena climbed up with his help, settling behind her children. Her arms wrapped around them tightly as Rowan swung into the saddle and guided the horse into the storm. Snow blew sideways, stinging their faces. The wind howled like a wild thing. But Rowan rode with the confidence of a man who knew this land like a map in his mind. He leaned forward, urging the horse faster, calling back to Lena every few moments. Almost there. Hang on, you are safe. His voice felt like a lifeline in the swirling white darkness. After what felt like forever, a cabin appeared through the storm, warm light glowing from its window. Rowan brought the horse to a stop and helped the children down with careful hands. He pushed open the door, and heat rushed out to greet them. A large stone fireplace roared in the center of the room. The air smelled of pine, warm wool, and coffee. The space looked lived in but tidy, every corner speaking of steady hands and steady days. Rowan set Grace near the fire and helped Emma and Samuel unwrap their blankets. He tossed more wood onto the flames until the fire brightened. "You will sleep under a real roof tonight," he said, "and for as long as you need after that." Lena's throat tightened. She wanted to speak, to thank him properly, but her voice cracked under the weight of relief. She had carried fear for so long that letting it go hurt almost as much as holding it. "Thank you," she whispered. Rowan nodded. "Rest now. Tomorrow we talk about what comes next." Lena settled with the children by the fire. She watched their faces relax in the warmth, watched color slowly return to their cheeks. Grace slept curled against Emma's chest. Samuel's head dropped to Lena's shoulder. They looked safe, truly safe. For the first time in months, outside the storm raged on. Inside, Lena felt something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. A small spark. A fragile beginning. The kind of hope that could grow if someone protected it long enough. She looked toward the door where Rowan stood, shaking snow from his coat. This man, who appeared out of a storm, might be the answer to every prayer she had whispered in the dark. The next morning broke soft and pale over the Wyoming plains. Warm light filtered through the cabin windows, stretching across the wooden floorboards and the pile of quilts where Lena's children slept. Grace lay tucked against Emma, breathing softly. Samuel slept on his back, with his mouth slightly open, his face peaceful in a way Lena had not seen in months. For the first time since losing Andrew, Lena felt her heart loosen. Just a little, just enough to breathe. Rowan was already outside. Lena heard the steady chop of wood, the thump, as logs landed in a neat stack beside the cabin. She rose slowly, muscles stiff from too many cold nights on frozen ground. She tucked the quilts around her children and stepped outside with one of Rowan's blankets draped around her shoulders. The morning air was crisp, but gentle compared to the storm. Snow covered everything, sparkling under the rising sun. Rowan paused mid-swing when he saw her. "You should be inside where it is warm," he said, lowering the axe. "We have already taken so much of your kindness," Lena replied. "I do not want to be a burden." Rowan wiped his brow with his sleeve. "You are not a burden. You came through a bad storm. Anyone would help in that situation." Lena looked down at her bare feet in the snow. Most men would have kept riding. Rowan stepped closer, his voice steady. "I am not most men." Before she could answer, the cabin door creaked open and Grace toddled out, still wrapped in a blanket. She lifted her arms toward Rowan. He scooped her up with an easy smile that melted any fear she had left. "Morning, little firecracker," he said, tapping her nose. Grace giggled and buried her face in his coat. Emma and Samuel came out next. Samuel stared at Rowan the way boys do when they are unsure whether to respect a man or challenge him. "Mama says we are not supposed to take charity," he said. "This is not charity," Rowan replied. "This is neighbors helping neighbors." "But we do not know you," Samuel insisted. "Then we will fix that," Rowan said. "I am Rowan Tate, and I am going to help your mama get back on her feet." "Does that work for you?" Samuel hesitated, then nodded. "I guess so." Emma stepped forward shyly. "Can we stay for breakfast?" "You can stay for breakfast, lunch, supper, and everything between," Rowan said with a small grin. "As long as you need." Inside, Rowan cooked eggs and biscuits. The room filled with the warm smell of real food. Emma hummed as she ate. Samuel shoveled food into his mouth with a hunger that made Lena's chest ache. Grace smiled around every bite, Lena ate slowly, too full of emotion to eat fast. She had forgotten what it felt like to watch her children eat until their bellies were full. After breakfast, Rowan took Samuel outside to help with the horses. Samuel's eyes lit up the moment he saw the big sorrel mare. "She is so tall," he whispered. "She is gentle too," Rowan said, handing Samuel a brush. "Give her long strokes." "She will like that." Samuel brushed with careful movements, his small chest puffing with pride. Emma helped Lena wash dishes. Grace wandered around, picking up wooden spoons and dropping them again, making herself laugh each time. By midday, Lena felt something deep inside her begin to shift. A small piece of fear slipped away like melting snow. Later that afternoon, she stepped outside again and found Rowan repairing a loose hinge on the barn door. The wind carried the scent of fresh pine. Lena hesitated before speaking. "You have done so much for us," she said softly. "I do not know how to thank you." "You do not need to thank me," Rowan replied, tightening the hinge. "You needed help. That is all." "It is more than that," Lena whispered. "You saved us." Rowan stood and met her eyes. "I did what any decent man should do. Do not put me on a pedestal. Just let me help." The honesty in his voice made her chest tighten. She had spent so long taking care of everything herself that letting someone help felt almost impossible. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the snowy hills, Rowan returned to the cabin with a bundle wrapped in brown paper. The children were already sleepy from a warm meal. Lena rocked Grace near the fire, while Emma and Samuel played quietly with a set of wooden blocks Rowan had lent them. Rowan stepped inside and held out the bundle. "Something for you," he said. Lena blinked. "For me? Open it." She unwrapped the paper slowly. Inside was a length of deep red wool, soft and rich in color. Enough for a shawl, maybe even a dress. Her breath caught. "Rowan, this is beautiful. Too beautiful. You should not have spent money on us." "I did not spend much," he said quickly. Lena looked at him, and he instantly looked away. She knew it had not been cheap. She knew he was lying only to keep her from feeling guilty. "You noticed what we needed," she whispered, the fabric trembling in her hands. Rowan's voice softened. "You have gone too long without enough. I want you to have something that belongs to you. Not because you need it, Lena. Because you deserve it." Her throat tightened. Months of fear and exhaustion cracked open under the weight of such kindness. She had been living with nothing, fighting through every day just to keep her children alive. No one had given her anything in so long. No one had thought of her as a woman who might want something pretty or warm or soft. Rowan stepped back toward the door. "I will let you rest now." Lena surprised herself. "Stay a moment. Please." Rowan paused, then nodded and came back inside. The cabin was warm and quiet now. The children were asleep on their quilts, the fire casting soft gold around the room. Rowan sat near the door, respectful and careful, like he did not want to invade a space that belonged to her. Lena held the red wool in her lap. "You barely know us," she said quietly. "You do not know our past. You do not know what we have been through. And yet you have shown us more kindness than some towns have shown in months." Rowan looked at her with steady eyes. "I do not need to know every part of your story to care about your future." Lena's breath caught. The fire crackled between them, warm and steady. She felt something shift inside her chest. Not trust, not yet, but something close to it. Something that felt like the first step toward safety, toward belonging, toward hope. A hope she thought she lost forever. Rowan stood slowly. "Get some rest, Lena. Tomorrow we will make a plan. You and the children are safe here." As he stepped outside, Lena watched the door close behind him. She looked at her sleeping children, then at the red wool in her hands, soft and warm. For the first time in a long, dark year, she let herself imagine something she thought she had forgotten how to dream about, a future. a home, a gentle life without constant fear. Maybe, just maybe, this cowboy who appeared out of a storm was the beginning of everything new. The days that followed moved with a steady rhythm, the kind Lena had not felt since before Andrew died. Every morning, Rowan checked on them, bringing firewood, food, and calm reassurance. Samuel helped him with chores. Emma helped sweep the cabin and learned how to make biscuits from Rowan's small supply of flour. Grace followed everyone with tiny footsteps and a wide smile. Little by little, Lena began to breathe again. But as the storm settled and the days softened, something else began to grow. Something Lena had not expected. Something she tried to ignore, but could no longer deny. She was starting to trust Rowan Tate. One evening, after the children had drifted to sleep near the warm fire, Rowan stepped inside the cabin carrying a small wooden box. "What is that?" Lena asked. "A little something," he said. "Nothing fancy." Lena opened the lid and drew in a slow breath. Inside was a finely carved hair comb with small flowers etched along the edge. The wood was smooth and polished, shaped by careful hands. "I made it," Rowan said softly. "Thought it might be nice to have something pretty. Something just for you." Lena traced the carvings with her fingertip, her heart warming and aching at the same time. No one had given her anything beautiful since Andrew placed a ring on her finger years ago. She swallowed hard. "It is lovely." Rowan shrugged as if embarrassed. "You deserve something lovely." The room felt warm in a different way when he said it. Later that night, as Lena lay with the children, she stared at the comb resting on the shelf. She wondered how a man with such a rough life could show such gentle kindness. She wondered how long he would continue caring for them. And she wondered, with both fear and hope, what would happen when they were strong enough to move on. The next morning brought a change Lena had not expected. Rowan arrived early, his expression tight and troubled. Lena stepped outside, instantly sensing something was wrong. "What happened?" "I need to tell you something," Rowan said. "The ranch I work for, the Dusty Spur, belongs to an older man named Silas Blackwood. He has been like family to me. But his nephew from Missouri has arrived in town, Garrett Blackwood. He wants to take over the ranch." Lena's stomach tightened. Why would that be a problem for us? Rowan's jaw worked as he searched for the right words. Because Garrett plans to bring his own men. He wants changes. Big ones. He does not like the way things are run. If he buys the ranch outright, every worker could be replaced, including me. The weight of those words hit Lena like a blow. If Rowan lost his job and the ranch changed hands, where would he go? Where would they go? Their safety, their food, their shelter, all rested on Rowan's steady presence. Lena gripped her hands together. "Rowan, you have done so much for us. If you lose your place at that ranch because of us..." Rowan stepped closer, cutting her off. "Listen to me. This is not your fault. Not even a little. This is ranch business, not about you or the children. But if you lose your home..." "Then I will find another," Rowan said with certainty. "And wherever I go, I will make sure you are safe too. I mean that." Lena's throat tightened at the strength in his voice. She did not know how to answer. She barely knew how to breathe. Rowan lowered his voice. "I will fight for the job. Silas trusts me. But Garrett has money and influence. I need time. I need to show Silas that keeping me is worth more than any offer Garrett makes." "You will," Lena whispered, placing her hand lightly over his. "You will." Days passed with tension in every moment. Rowan worked harder than ever to show Silas his worth. He spent long hours repairing fences, checking cattle, riding the line through deep snow. He still came to the cabin each night, though tired, and still carried firewood or food or supplies. Lena noticed every change in his face. The worry. The weariness. The unspoken fear. One evening, when Rowan arrived later than usual, Lena stepped outside before he reached the door. Snow clung to his coat. His shoulders sagged. "No news yet?" she asked quietly. He shook his head. Garrett is offering Silas more money than I could save in 3 lifetimes. Lena swallowed. What will happen? I do not know. Lena looked at him, really looked at him. A man who had saved her family. A man who had given them everything he could. A man who was now fighting not just for his future but theirs. She did something she had not done in months, something she had kept locked away behind fear and grief. She reached for his hand. Rowan's breath caught. You are not alone in this, Lena said softly. Whatever happens, we face it together. Rowan stared at her like her words meant more than anything he had heard in years. Slowly, he raised her hand to his chest, pressing it over his heart. And together is exactly how I want it, he whispered. The next morning brought a turning point. Silas Blackwood himself rode up to Rowan's cabin. The old rancher dismounted stiffly and stepped inside, brushing off snow. Lena felt her heart race. Rowan stood beside her. Silas looked at the children by the fire, the blankets, the repaired boots Rowan had bought them, the warm food cooling on the table. Then he looked back at Rowan. You have taken in a whole family, Silas said, without being asked. Without expecting anything, Rowan nodded. They needed help. Silas studied him with a deep, thoughtful gaze. Then he said, Boys like Garrett will never understand people like you. He wants a ranch that makes the most money. I want a ranch that takes care of people. Rowan held his breath. Silas smiled faintly. I am turning down my nephew's offer. I am keeping this ranch the way it is. But I cannot run it much longer. I need a partner. Someone who knows the land. Someone with a good heart. Someone I can trust. Rowan's eyes widened. Silas nodded. I want you, Rowan Tate. And I want this family safe here, on this ranch, for as long as they want to stay. Lena gasped, covering her mouth. Silas turned to her with kind eyes. You and those children deserve a home. If you choose to stay, you will always have one here. Rowan looked at Lena, hope and disbelief shining in his eyes. Lena felt warmth bloom in her chest, spreading through every part of her that had been cold for too long. She stepped toward him. Then she looked at Silas. We will stay, she said, if Rowan will have us. Rowan's eyes softened in a way that made Lena's knees tremble. I will, he said quietly, more than anything. And that night, with the fire warm and the storm far behind them, Lena finally understood something she had forgotten to believe in. Happy endings were real, and sometimes they rode in out of a storm with a steady horse, a steady heart, and a promise strong enough to build a life around.